The right compliment, spoken at the right moment, has a power most people underestimate. It can shift the emotional temperature between two people instantly, almost like flipping a switch. Compliments are unique because they put control in your hands. You don't have to wait for someone to notice you, validate you, or initiate a connection. Instead, you can create that moment yourself. And in a world where people spend more time staring at their screens than looking at each other, where approaching someone in real life feels rarer and riskier than ever, having something as simple and human as a compliment becomes a quiet superpower. What makes compliments so effective is how disarming they are. They cut through social barriers, awkwardness, and the uncertainty of, does this person even see me? Many of us are out of practice socially, we hesitate, we overthink, we hide behind our phones, and because of that, genuine warmth feels almost shocking. A sincere compliment doesn't just break the ice, it warms the entire room. It signals that you're willing to step forward instead of waiting in the shadows. Compliments also create subtle emotional openings. They make someone feel acknowledged, and acknowledgement, real, specific, thoughtful acknowledgement, is rare today. When someone feels seen, even briefly, their guard drops. They become more receptive. They lean in instead of pulling away. And attraction often begins in that tiny moment where two people move a little closer, emotionally or physically, without even realizing it. This simple act, a kind sentence delivered with sincerity, becomes the spark that makes someone notice you differently. You suddenly stand out not by being loud, flashy, or impressive, but by making them feel something positive about themselves. That's the quiet magic of a compliment. Attraction can feel mysterious, as if it appears out of thin air, but in reality there's a structure behind it, a pattern that explains why we feel drawn to some people and barely notice others. The attraction formula breaks it down into 4 elements: chemistry, perceived value, perceived challenge, and connection. And while each part matters, compliments have a surprising ability to influence 3 of them at once, which makes them far more powerful than most people realize. Chemistry is often thought of as something purely instinctive, something that just happens when two people meet. But chemistry can also grow the moment you learn that someone sees something good in you. When you know someone thinks highly of you, they suddenly stand out more. Their presence feels different, almost warmer. A compliment acts like a subtle spark, it creates a shift, a new energy, a sense of possibility. Compliments also deepen connection. Not the surface-level kind, but the emotional sort that forms when someone feels genuinely understood. Anyone can say you look nice, but when your compliment reveals that you've noticed something meaningful, an effort, a quality, a strength, it builds a bridge between you. It tells them you're paying attention in a way others aren't. Then there is perceived value. When you recognize someone's deeper qualities, their kindness, intelligence, humor, resilience, you elevate their sense of worth in your presence. And paradoxically, this makes you more valuable in their eyes. Someone who sees what others overlook becomes memorable. They become someone special. Compliments aren't just words, they're signals. Signals that create warmth, significance, and connection, all essential ingredients that quietly pull two people closer without force or effort. For many men, compliments land with a much deeper emotional impact than most people realize. It's not because men are fragile or overly sensitive, but because they grow up in a world where receiving genuine praise, especially from women, is shockingly rare. From a young age, boys are conditioned to be strong, self-reliant, and stoic. They're encouraged to tough things out, to avoid expressing insecurity, and to keep emotional needs to themselves. Over time, this creates a kind of drought in their emotional world. So when a sincere compliment finally does arrive, it hits with the force of something they've unconsciously been missing. Men online often say things like, "I remember every compliment I've ever gotten," not as a brag, but as a quiet truth. Many can literally count them on one hand. One man wrote that he could recall every single genuine compliment a woman had ever given him because there were only about 5. That scarcity shapes the way men receive validation. It becomes something precious, something to hold on to. For women, compliments are common, shared between friends, exchanged casually, woven naturally into conversations. For men, they're almost never offered in daily life. When a man hears a heartfelt compliment, it doesn't just make him feel good, it makes him feel seen, chosen, and valued in a way he may not experience anywhere else. That's why men often say the words don't matter as much as the fact that someone noticed. It's the emotional recognition, the acknowledgement that he is enough, that he brings something meaningful into the world. Compliments pierce through the armor men wear, reaching a part of them that rarely gets touched. And because of that, they remember them long after the moment has passed. While society often focuses on the ways women feel invisible or overlooked, especially as they get older, far less attention is given to how deeply men experience their own kind of invisibility. Many men move through the world feeling unseen in ways they rarely express out loud. They carry silent comparisons to other men who seem more successful, more confident, more attractive, or more desirable. And beneath the surface, they carry a worry they almost never admit, that they may not be enough for the kind of partner they hope to attract. This sense of invisibility is not loud or dramatic. It's subtle. It shows up when a man questions his worth but doesn't feel he has the space to voice those doubts. It shows up when he believes he should have it together, yet privately wonders if he's falling behind. It shows up when he wants to be appreciated but doesn't know how to ask for it without feeling weak. The rise of male-focused podcasts, influencers, and self-improvement groups isn't an accident. It's a reflection of millions of men searching for a place where they feel understood. Some of these spaces teach discipline and resilience, others encourage men to be open about the emotions they've been taught to suppress. And some blend strength with emotional intelligence, offering men a new model of masculinity that allows for depth, vulnerability, and growth. Women often ask, where are the men doing the work? But the truth is that many men are doing the work, they just do it differently. Much of their growth happens internally, privately, quietly. What's often overlooked is the reason they're doing this work in the first place, a desire to be worthy of love, valued for who they are, and accepted by someone who sees beyond the surface. Men may not often show vulnerability, but inside, they carry more of it than they ever let on. Among the thousands of responses collected from men across different conversations and relationship threads, one compliment rose above all the others in terms of emotional impact: "You make me feel safe." On the surface, it might seem like an unusual compliment to give a man, but its power lies in what it communicates beneath the words. It tells him that his presence brings comfort, stability, and emotional protection. It signals that he isn't just physically strong or dependable, but that he creates an environment where someone feels secure simply by being near him. For many men, that touches something deep and instinctive. Men often grow up with a strong desire to protect, not in an aggressive or dominant way, but in a supportive, grounding sense. When someone tells a man that he makes them feel safe, it validates one of the most meaningful roles he can play in a person's life. It's not about being a hero or a savior. It's about being a calming force, a steady presence, a person who makes the world feel less chaotic. Hearing that from someone he cares about can hit harder than any praise about his looks, achievements, or success. What makes this compliment even more impactful is its emotional intimacy. Safety is not something you feel around just anyone. It requires trust. So when a man hears this, he understands that he has earned a kind of emotional closeness that cannot be faked. It tells him he is someone who contributes to your peace rather than your stress. Many men admit that this compliment stayed with them for years, sometimes even decades. Not because it inflated their ego, but because it affirmed that who they are, not what they do, has a powerful and positive effect on someone else's life. The second compliment that consistently stood out to men was, "I really respect how you handled that." Unlike a comment about appearance or charm, this is a compliment about character, something far deeper, harder to earn, and far more meaningful. Respect speaks directly to a part of a man's identity that he rarely receives acknowledgement for. Many men spend their lives trying to navigate difficult decisions, stressful situations, and emotional pressure without ever hearing that they handled something well. When someone finally recognizes it, the impact is almost immediate and profound. This compliment tells a man that you noticed his judgment, his ability to stay calm, to make a thoughtful choice, to respond with maturity instead of impulse. It says you appreciate the way he carries himself when it matters. Men are often taught that they should be competent, responsible, and strong, yet they rarely receive recognition when they live up to those expectations. Instead, their good decisions often go unnoticed, while their mistakes get magnified. So when someone points out their integrity in action, it feels like a breath of fresh air, like someone finally sees the effort they've been quietly making all along. Another reason this compliment is powerful is that respect for a man is often even more important than admiration or attraction. Attraction feels good, but respect feels grounding. It reassures him that he's not only desirable but trustworthy and dependable. It makes him feel valued not for superficial qualities, but for his choices, his stability, and his principles. Men often say this kind of compliment makes them feel capable and worthy in a way few things do. It stays with them because it acknowledges one of the deepest parts of who they are, someone who tries to do the right thing, even when no one is watching, except now, someone finally is. The third compliment that men said stayed with them the longest was some version of, "You have such a calming or grounding energy." This is a compliment that doesn't praise what a man achieves or performs, instead, it honors who he is at his core. And for many men, that kind of acknowledgement is rare. Throughout their lives, men are usually rewarded for action, what they can fix, what they can provide, what they can complete. Their value is often linked to output. But when someone tells a man that his presence alone brings comfort, peace, or stability, it reaches a deeper emotional place that performance-based praise never touches. This compliment tells him that he makes a positive impact simply by being in the room. He doesn't need to impress you, solve a problem, or be in constant motion. His existence itself has value. One man described it as the first time he felt appreciated for a quality he didn't have to work for, something natural, something effortless. And that is precisely why it means so much. For a lot of men, the world feels loud, demanding, and filled with pressure. They often feel like they have to hold everything together. To be told that they bring steadiness to someone else's life is not only flattering, it's soothing. It makes them feel like their quieter qualities, the parts they don't show off, actually matter. It also creates emotional closeness. If someone feels calmer around him, it suggests trust, safety, and emotional compatibility. It's an intimate compliment, the kind that hints at deeper connection. Men often replay this compliment in their minds because it validates a part of themselves they rarely think anyone notices, their ability to bring peace, not chaos. Compassion, not noise. Presence, not performance. And that kind of acknowledgement stays with a man long after the moment has passed. The fourth compliment that men consistently said meant the world to them was some version of, "You're really thoughtful." At first glance, it may seem simple, but its emotional meaning runs far deeper than people realize. Many men express care not through big dramatic gestures, but through quieter acts, paying attention, remembering small details, doing something without being asked, or thinking ahead to make someone else's life a little easier. These kinds of actions often go unnoticed, not because people are ungrateful, but because thoughtfulness itself tends to be subtle. It's woven into the background. So when someone finally recognizes those efforts, the impact can be surprisingly powerful. Men who naturally lean toward being considerate often do so quietly, with no expectation of praise. They're not looking to be congratulated, they just want to feel like their effort matters. Hearing you're thoughtful tells them that their attention, empathy, and intention are actually seen. And for many men, that kind of appreciation is incredibly rare. This compliment also acknowledges emotional intelligence, a quality many men work hard to develop but rarely get credit for. It says he's someone who doesn't just act, he notices, he listens, he cares. Instead of focusing on what he provides materially or physically, it focuses on the emotional value he brings to a connection. That kind of validation can feel like a warm spotlight on qualities he often keeps in the dark. Another reason this compliment resonates is that thoughtfulness is frequently overshadowed in dating. People talk about attraction, chemistry, confidence, or excitement. But long-term connection often thrives on simple acts of consideration. When you highlight his thoughtfulness, you're essentially saying that you value the deeper, more mature qualities that make someone a good partner. For many men, that acknowledgement stays with them because it affirms a part of themselves they quietly hope someone will recognize. The silence that followed the doctor's verdict clung to the walls like damp mold. Word drifted quietly through the barracks first, then into the fields, and finally into the makeshift pen where Silas sat alone, staring at nothing. Heart strikes, some whispered. Spells of stoppin', others said. No one dared speak directly to him, not out of fear of the disease, but fear of the man he became inside those sudden collapses, as if something old and furious clawed through him. When he regained consciousness, bruised from thrashing against the earth, he always rose slowly, breathing like someone surfacing from the bottom of a lake. But the foreman had his own interpretation, and it traveled faster than any diagnosis. He claimed the seizures were a sign Silas had been chosen, or cursed, by something not human. "Hell don't take men like him," he muttered in front of the others, loud enough for Silas to hear. "It borrows 'em." It didn't matter to the owners whether Silas lived long or died young, only that he could still stand, still fight, still bring them wagers heavier than any crop yield. The moment he could lift his head without shaking, they threw him back into the ring. Inside that circle of dirt, the world warped. Every time his chest tightened, every time darkness gathered behind his eyes, the crowd surged forward, eager to see whether this bout would be the one that finally killed him. Silas fought harder than he needed to, almost as if he were fighting against death itself. Those watching swore they saw something change in him during a seizure, something ancient flickering behind his gaze like a lantern flame suddenly starving for air. No matter how violently he fell, he always rose again. And with each revival came another victory, another corpse dragged away, and another whisper that the ring was shaping him into something no doctor could diagnose and no God had intended.